My presentation is entitled Circarama and Totalrama, Legacy of an Immersive Culture in the Economic Boom. In the long history of cinematic immersivity, In the long history of cinematic immersivity and immersivity in general, many devices have been proposed. I want to focus on two of these, the Italian Circarama and Totalrama, two groundbreaking 360-degree film techniques from the early 60s. I will describe them, how they work, and what are the technological elements that they make them up. Then I will point out the creating tension that they include from a social and industrial point of view. In conclusion, I will remark some key points and the importance to look at this technological innovation from the past, even if not always lucky, to better understand our present and some contemporaneous tendencies of new forms of immersion. The desire for people to feel as if they are immersed in a picture is not new. The concept was explored for the first time in the late 18th century with the invention of the pictorial panorama patented by Robert Barker in 1787. In a short while, was clear that to create an immersive experience, two concepts are fundamental: visuality and mobility. A symptom of this is, for example, the increase in production of moving panoramas, but the journey to reach this aim is long and also full of dead ends. The moment in which these two topics encounter each other for the first time is within Grimont-Sanson's Circarama at the Paris exhibition in 1900. This circular projection is to be considered the starting point of the widescreen film technologies that developed worldwide from the 50s, culminating with the IMAX technology on the Osaka Expo in 1970. The Paris exhibition of 1900 was neither the first nor the only such event to display technological innovation and showcase the products of modernity as the fruits of progress, but is certainly the first to present a high proportion of attraction which related to the moving image. Among these, one is fundamental for the evolution of the panoramic technology, Circarama, the specialized expo in '61 in Torino, Italy, organized for celebrating the centenary of the unity of Italy. The Palazzo del Lavoro were purpose-built for the event and hosted displays themed around work, space, and divided into sections, and Fiat was allocated the section on transport. It would theme its exhibition space upon the evolution of various means of transport, utilizing a land-sea-air axis. This is the juncture in the design layout where the Circarama pavilion takes over, a cinematic innovation that will make it possible to show what in the collective exhibition would not be possible to visualize, and which would be built next to Palazzo Nervi. It consists in a circular pavilion where the spectator stands and look at the film that overwhelming them. The projectors were positioned on an external circle and elevated, and the light coming from each projector hit the corresponding screen in the opposite side. The first Circarama had been realized in Disneyland, then a subsequent stopover at the Brussels Expo 1958 with the film America the Beautiful, flaunting the American way of life. Here, Fiat representatives were able to attend this immersive show to take note. The Italian response is the film Italia 61, filmed by the well-known director Elio Piccon, follows that same formula, presenting itself as a journey through Italy, showing historic places of culture, scenic beauty, yet also images of developing industries, by now an integral part of the nation. To shoot the footage, the camera block had to be mounted upon various forms of transport, a car, a gondola, an hydraulic elevator, and these we can see also directly from the patent. of Circarama. Circarama showcased in Italy presents significant innovation and improvements from a technical standpoint. The number of cameras and consequently cinema projectors is reduced from 11 to 9. The camera group for the shooting phase is equipped with mirrors and thus able to achieve angles that would otherwise have been impossible to shot. The adoption of R-Reflex 60mm rather than 35mm film, with the subsequently blowing up to 35mm for projection. The camera group was also used upside down to make some difficult shots. In Italy too, Circarama guaranteed this long-anticipated success. It was so acclaimed by both visitors and press through the opening weeks of the exhibition that the following year Fiat took it on tour to Milano and Bari as a tie-in with these cities' own trade fairs. In this way, a greater diversity of the Italian population would have their chance to be awed by such a spectacle. In the wake of this triumph, Fiat decided to continue investing in the panoramic film industry, this time in anticipation of the 1964-65 New York Expo. A selected committee made up of Fiat, chemical giant Montecatini, and IRI, Industrial Reconstruction Institute, was in charge of operations, together embodying a large sway of Italian enterprise. Unfortunately, Disney royalties were deemed too high, but it was at this point that Fiat discovered Totalrama. This was an Italian technology patented by the engineer Vico D'incerti. It eventually had its debut at the 1962 with a presentation at the 14th International Congress of Cinematic Technology in Torino. The aim is always the same: to obtain an immersed, the aim is always to get the viewer immersed in the images, but the technical mechanism behind that goal changed. In fact, Totalrama works with only one camera. The film is arranged horizontally, not vertically, and above the camera there is a turret composed of an arrangement of prisms. This represents the crux of innovation. The arrangement consists of 3 prisms, 2 total reflection rotating prisms, and 1 rectangular isosceles prism, positioned on the same vertical axis, and they rotate on themselves. To better convey the idea, the construction of the optical unit is similar to that of a periscope. For the projection, the system is the same, but in reverse. The projected light passes through the film, then is redirected through the assembly of prism, and finally strikes the circular screen. The movement of projection turret is comparable to a lighthouse. As it turns, it progressively illuminates portion of the screen, guaranteeing the sensation of consistent images due to the phenomenon of retinal persistence. The film strips did not present line splicing. It is a continuous frame. The definition of frame is problematic in this sense, because the viewer is able to perceive a change of scene only when the situation changes. Unfortunately, the films that were shot in Totalrama would never be edited, nor would it form part of Italy's participation in New York Expo 64-65. All that remains today are the 35mm negatives kept at the Archivio Nazionale del Cinema d'Impresa, located in Ivrea, Torino. Like the film Italia 61 in Circarama, it was to have been a travelogue through Italy, once more affording of landscape, sites of cultural heritage, and obviously views of modern industry too. In a media archaeological framework using the references from film history as media archaeology, tracking digital camera by Thomas Elsesser, and media archaeology approaches applications and implication by Archiutamo and UC Parica, we can affirm that that although Totalrama was an abortive project, if inserted into a film history from a media archaeological stance, it might well be understood as not just excavation of meaningful pasts, but also generating an archaeology of possible futures. This is precisely what this Italian proposal demonstrates, the study of dead ends of media products which were ultimately unsuccessful, that have died prior to completion, that have been abandoned, neglected, forgotten, yet they still have crucial stories to tell. In relation with the technologies of Circarama and Totalrama, it's important to underline that a lot of spectatorial dynamics of the pictorial panoramas are reactivated, like the way that leads the spectators into the painting projection, in this case, physical illness like nausea and dizziness, and the spectators are standing and increasing participatory. In this way, emotional involvement manages to bring out a sense of identification between people, places, events, and situations shown in the film. A sense of familiarity with the subject that activates a very high level participation. The elements important to frame the period of the 60s are the film industry and the automotive industry. The film industry is in a moment of crisis due to the affirmation of the television set, which from 1949 onward began to establish itself as a fixture of home entertainment, first in the United States and then across Europe. From this moment on, cinema has had to rethink itself. It decided to focus on the element of spectacle, specifically by investing in the augmented off-screen dimensions. The projection in Circarama, for example, offers an immersive experience thanks to a synchronized multi-screen system organized around a circular space in which the viewer is completely engulfed by a flow of images. But there are a lot of different purposes like Cinerama, VistaVision, CinemaScope, Todd.io, until to arrive at the IMAX. But the 60s is also the period of the economic boom, which means that it is the moment in which Italy is rebuilding itself from the economic point of view, but also the material one. Thanks to this flourishing period, the modernity comes with all the new appliances that renew the Italian style of life. For example, it is the moment in which born the idea of modern tourism, and the car plays a key role in this panorama. From the 20th century begins a period of profound changes that see the world becoming more and more fluid, moving and full of images, which flow faster and faster, all in the name of travel, in a close relationship between them. With the words from Virtual Voyages, Cinema and Travel by Jeffrey Roof, in the modern era, the very concept of travel becomes intricately bound up with the production of images. The image becomes our way of structuring a journey and even provides a substitute for it. Travel becomes a means of appropriating the world through images. End of quote. We are in what Nana Verov defines as the visual regime of navigation, a moment of encounter between the fundamental concept of visual culture, which are those of visuality and mobility, mediated by the screen interface that can belong to different media objects where the experience is manifested by mobile vision. In modern cities, where cars are ubiquitous, travelers can move more freely, and therefore developing a new aptitude of creating their own routes. Just as spectators standing in the circular Circarama or Totalrama space are free to choose where to look. They are thus able to attain a higher degree of involvement, causing them to become co-participants in the creation of meaning from the images that flow on the screen all around them. What becomes important in this dynamic is not so much what you see, but the experience of the journey itself and the movement that can be recreated, simulating the viewer's attention and managing to reinstate the feeling of immersive participation. The moving landscape visible through the windshield of a moving vehicle may be considered in terms of a virtual window. The panoramic technologies of Circarama and Totalrama examined here form part of a history of patents and technical innovations developed in the 60s, but are also strongly connected to the past experience, of which they display recognizable feature and dynamics, and at the same time are indicative for future contemporary technologies like experiencing virtual reality would not have been conceivable if they had not undergone successes and failures in the past. To this end, attention to any medium's past can be seen to be a fundamental aid in understanding today's panorama. As we have seen, however, it is pertinent to analyze these devices in a context in order to understand their deeper dynamics. In fact, cinema spectators of the 60s were the same people inhabiting a world in transformation, committed to modernity, who through experience ever more rapid movement become used to looking at reality with different rhythms and frames, such as that of a windscreen. They are thus even more receptive to the panoramic windscreen cinema experience, such as Circarama and Totalrama. And at the end, I want to show you something else. So this is the frame from before in a virtual tour in which we can, how to say, navigate on the frame. Is so a possible view for this ancient material.